discuss today. First, we will go with typecasting. Then different examples we will see, like how we can use. Okay. Also, we will learn a bit like how to take user input. Okay, so this is a simple class we have, test one. Okay, now I'm going to discuss about typecasting. We are going to discuss typecasting. Okay, do you know what is typecasting? Anybody?
Converting smaller data, like one data type into another data type, or
Into
assign.
after session, how can we communicate with you? Okay, I'll let you know tomorrow, like what could be the better way to reach me after the session. Don't worry. Okay, so typecasting is basically conversion from one data type to another data type. Okay. Conversion from one data type to another data type is called typecasting. Why we need it? What is the need actually? Right? Okay, now let's look over an example. For example, I have something called A, which is equals to 10, right? Then I have something called double D is equals to, and we also have B, which is, let's say, 3. Then after this, what I have is A divided by B. And then, okay, first of all, I need to take main method. Then this stuff will be moved over there. I'm printing D is equals to plus T. Okay, so can anyone guess the answer of this question? Quick, very simple.
Right, so 3.33.
3.33. All right. Anyone else? Three. All
Three.
right.
3.
All right. Yeah. All right. How?
So it will take max. So there is a one formula when we are using two data types. Max plus data type of first variable and data type of second variable. And first and second one is int, so it will give result as a int.
All right. Or in simple words, we can just say whenever we divide an integer with another integer, what we will get is an integer, right? If it were like double in A or B, then we will get double. I'll come to that. Let me just run it once and let's see what exactly we are going to get. So we are getting 3, you can see, but the expected was 3.33, right? Now what is the reason? Because both a and b are integer. So when we divide an integer with another integer, the output or the result would be an integer only, right? Now in this case you can see we are losing some information. What is that? 0.33. In that case what we need is typecasting. So what basically typecasting means is, typecasting says just for execution time, when you are executing this particular statement, just treat it as a double or whatever the type you are going to define, and calculate the data and just leave it. Like in my case I am taking double. So what I'm saying is, whatever the outcomes would be, treat it as a double so that we haven't lost any information. Okay, let me just run it. So you can see now we are getting 3.3333. Like there are number of threes because we are having a double value. So total how many are there? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 and 16. Any doubt guys in this? Why we need, basically you got an idea I believe. If anyone has any doubt, please feel free to ask. Questions are most welcome. Okay, now if it were float, then we need to convert it into float. In this case you guys can see we are getting only 7 numbers. So this is the similar thing we were discussing yesterday. Like when we store a double and a float, there will be slight difference. If the number is getting solved up to 6 calculation, then number will be stored differently. If it is not getting solved by 6 place, then the number will be stored differently in both of the cases, right? So this is the similar thing. Okay, we have one. Okay, all right. So this is called typecasting. So there are two type of typecasting basically. um, First one is explicit casting, and the second one is implicit. So for explicit, user have to write some code, because yesterday we have seen in this case we might load some, we might lost some information. Like when we were saying byte b equals to uh, 10.3 was there for example, and we were saying, what we were saying is byte of this. So we were losing this information. You remember guys? This information is getting lost. Only 10 is gonna store into B. So for explicit casting, user have to write something. Like in this case, we are writing this. Java doesn't do it on their own because there is a risk of information loss, right? That's why user have to write some code for this. What will be that code? Like this. Implicit casting is basically where Java understand there is no risk in conversion of type, and it just go ahead and do the casting for you. For example, when I say let me write it as a double d equals to 10, you can see this is a whole number which is basically representing to an int. Yes or no? But we can store it into this double variable. There is no loss of information, right? You getting my point? So in this case, what Java is doing basically, Java is adding this on their own and converting this 10 into double, and that's why we are getting 10.0. Let me just show you guys once and we'll come back to this. So for now what I have is double D is equals to 10.3, not 10.3, only 10. Okay, and I'm printing this value, and what we are going to get is 10.0. So this is called implicit casting, means when there is no risk of converting a data type into another, then Java take that risk and convert that data into appropriate data type. You are getting my point? Okay. So now there are two things, like when we are going bigger data type to smaller one, we can say this is implicit casting. Sorry, I write it wrong. This is explicit, like we are going to take that risk. Like in this case, uh, it was byte, and here we were having something called 10.3, and then we were writing byte to convert it into byte. So basically this is bigger data type and we are converting it into a small one, right? Getting my point? So in that case we need to specify this cast operator, right? This is called explicit casting, or sometimes we also call it narrowing. And the reverse process, like smaller to bigger, that is implicit. Java understand that and take that risk, because there is no risk actually. Implicit casting, also we called it broadening, like we are expanding that data. Anyone has any doubt so far? Also not in some documentation or some documents you might have, like these two terms have different I would say different name, like this is called typecasting and this one is called type conversion. Okay, all good so far. All right, so you got an idea, like when we can you send the PDF document? I believe I have shared that document with the coordination team. You haven't received that yet? But they didn't share. Okay. Oh, all right. No problem. I just got an update in the evening today. They have shared one email ID. I'm not sure from which person this email ID belongs. I think it is a group email ID. I'll share the content over there and you might be able to get this. So no worries guys. Give me one more day. You will get this. Okay. All right. So next topic would be we have covered typecasting. Okay, let me just open the syllabus once and we'll go with that. So we have covered the first one, history and features, internal Java program, difference between JDK, JRE, variable and data types, Unicode system, naming convention. Okay. From the basic of Java, what we have is right now, which is pending. Let me just write it down here. This one, which is pending, and something called as operator, and then control statements. These are the three topics that we need to cover, and this one as well. Okay, and then we will start our object oriented programming. Okay, so let's first start with naming convention. So naming conventions are basically certain best practices we need to follow. Like, this is all about how to name your identifier. So when we say naming convention is basically all about how to name your identifier. And if I say identifier, what is an identifier, guys? An identifier can be name of a class, a variable, a method, an array, an interface. All these are identifier. Okay. Okay, fine. Now, what is all about how to name your identifiers. So there are certain I would say conventions that we need to follow. These are not rule, I'm saying these are conventions. Like, when we say rule, then we need to follow that strictly, but these are conventions, or we can just say practices we need to follow. Okay, so how to name a class? So class name should start with a capital letter. Like, in our case, what we have done so far is we wrote a class that was hello world. Okay, like this. So in this, you can see the first letter was capital and the second letter was capital. If I write it like this, so what will happen? You will try to read this word in a single go, in one go, right? What is the benefit of writing like this? So you can break it down and name, or you can try to pronounce it. Let me show you some example that Java has given. Okay. So I'm just going to open some classes that has been provided by Java itself. So we have seen in past there was a jar that we use in every program. Basically, every program uses that jar. That was rt.jar when I ran the program using command prompt, right? So this is the jar. In this jar, what we have, you can see there are a number of folders, or we simply say in Java these are packages, right? and the most common package here in this is java.lang. So let me just move to that one, java.lang. Yeah, here we go. There are classes like start from here, abstract method error. So this is written by Java. After that we have abstract string builder class, then we have application shutdown hooks class. So you can see the naming conventions, right? It's called camel casing, correct? Gurpreet, yeah, camel casing, not casting. This is called camel casing. Yes. So basically, this is the conventions that we generally follow when we write a class, right? Like we want to keep that long name. You can see enum, constant, note, present, exception, right? You can read it properly, but if it were like there is no capital C, capital N, capital P, capital E, then it would be difficult to read it. You getting my point? So make it more readable, we use that camel casing, right? If in future if I say to write a program or write an application, so you can decide your class name, and based on that you can use camel casing. Okay, next point, how to name a variable. So for class we have seen we can use something kind of this. Now let's talk about variables. So variable generally start with small letter like employee name, employee ID, student name, like that. Okay. So first letter would be small, and then if it is a bigger name, then we can use something like this. If it is simple single word, then we can write it like name, and there might be two different scenario with name like first name and last name. Then how should we write? So we can write like this, first name, last name, like that. Getting my point, guys? How to name a variable? um, I believe all you guys are getting this and able to understand. Okay, now let me go with method name. So similar kind of convention we will use with method name that we are doing with a variable name. Okay, now let's say we need to write a method. Let me take example of, for example, we have a name variable in class, right? And we want to write a method for this, so we can simply write like this, get name, something like this, or set name, like this. Okay, and if it were like emp name, then how we will write it? If we want to write like set uh, or get, then we can simply write like this, set emp. Then in this case we are going to make it capital, like this. Okay, now let's have a look the methods that Java already have. So let me just open system class, because we know a bit about system class, or let me just open this string. So string we are using in our program, like this is test one program, and you can see we are using string class here, and system class we are using here. Okay, so from string class, let me just show you how they are naming their methods. So these all are methods, you can see starting from here. Length is empty, caret, code point at, code point before, code point count, get bytes, equals, content equals, not sync, content equals, ignore case, compare to, right? So all these are methods of a string class. So you can see the naming convention. All right. Now, how to name a constant? Suppose you want to define a constant. So constant are basically those variables which not, those are initialized ones and we cannot modify them later. Like we were working yesterday on a constant when we said final int. Let me take a real example. For example, double pi is equals to 3.114, like this. So when we say constant, so we should use capital letters like this, and we cannot modify it later on. Like if I say pi is equals to 3.1476, something like this, we cannot do that. You can see we are getting an error. So basically, how to define a constant? When we want to define a constant, what we just do is we define it as a final. All right, and then the convention says use capital letters. Like if I can write it like this as well, pi, but this is not recommended. Recommended way is to use like this. Let me show you the real pi which we have in math class. So constant we can see here. You can see there is a constant declared in this class, public static final double, and this is the value for this variable. Can you see, guys? Similarly, there would be other constant as well. Let me just check what are those.
So for constant only we use final constant
Yes,
variable. Okay.
yes. Whenever you want, no one can modify a variable once it is initialized, then we can just write it as final. Like string math. How we can go to predefined classes? Pravina, if you are on Eclipse, okay, then what you need to do is like I believe you know how to create a project. Okay, so what you need to do is with that project, basically, like for example, I'm talking about this demo one. So what I did is I right clicked on that project. I am going to properties, and after that I'm going to build path, and here source, yeah, in source we can just use we can add link source, and then we can browse the file class files, basically the source code of Java. Like in my case I have it um here, where it is, one second. Or if you have Eclipse, just try to do one thing. Um, Press Control Shift and T all together. Control Shift T. Try Control Shift T and type the name of the class you are looking for. Please give demo about Eclipse and how to use it. Definitely, I'll give. Don't worry. Shift T or D. Control Shift T. T for Tamil Nadu. Okay. Who was asking that question? Pravina, are you able to locate that class? Like you were asking how to go inside a predefined class, like we have string math. Like just I say Control Shift and T, then I can go in whatever class I want. Like I want to go in system. I'll just type system, and from this drop down I'll select system class and it will be open for me. I'll check it. Okay, fine. So what we were talking about, yeah, naming convention. So for constant we can use capital letters. We should use capital letters basically. Okay, fine. Then what next we have is, so naming convention is all about naming your identifiers. Now let's start with operators. So I believe you all know about operators, what are those and what is the purpose of using them. So let's have a quick look.